Men can stay up until 2 in the morning. Restless, their eyes heavy, their thoughts loud, their hearts filled with 1,000 worries that they never say out loud. They can drag themselves out of bed at 6, still carrying exhaustion in their bodies, but driven by a sense of duty that tells them they cannot stop. They cannot give up. They cannot afford to collapse. They can walk through life carrying debts on their backs, broken dreams in their hands, and loneliness in their hearts, and yet somehow, in the quiet corners of their minds, there still exists this unshakable belief that one day everything will fall into place, that somehow through all the storms, the struggles, the sleepless nights, the sacrifices, life will eventually reward their persistence. There is something deeply powerful about the kind of faith men carry. It is often silent, rarely spoken, and even less often celebrated. The world sees the man who is tired but still working. The world sees the man who is broke but still trying. The world sees the man who is alone but still holding himself together. But the world rarely acknowledges the invisible strength it takes to believe when every circumstance tells you to give up. Faith in the unseen, faith in the unknown, faith in a future you cannot touch yet. That is the invisible armor many men wear every single day. This resilience does not come from comfort. It does not come from certainty. It comes from a fire deep inside, one that whispers, "You cannot stop now." It comes from the memory of people depending on them, from the weight of responsibilities they cannot ignore, and sometimes from nothing more than a vision of a better life that keeps them from falling apart. Men endure because they have to. Men hope because hope is all they have left at times. And even when they are exhausted, even when they are defeated, even when they are doubted by everyone around them, they still find a way to keep believing that tomorrow holds something better than today. Think about the nights when a man lies awake, staring at the ceiling, counting the debts he cannot pay, reliving the mistakes he cannot undo, feeling the emptiness of a house that should be filled with laughter. Those nights are long. They are heavy. They break something inside you. Yet somehow, after just a few short hours of sleep, he wakes up, puts on his clothes, and moves forward as if the weight of the world is not crushing him. That is faith. That is strength. It is not glamorous. It is not celebrated. It is not rewarded with applause. But it is the foundation on which men build their lives. Society often underestimates this kind of faith. It is easy to look at a man who is broke and call him a failure. It is easy to look at a man who is alone and call him unwanted. It is easy to look at a man drowning in responsibility and call him weak. But what society rarely understands is that strength is not always measured by what you have. Sometimes strength is measured by what you continue to believe in despite not having it. Strength is measured by the way you get back up when you have no reason to. Strength is measured by the way you keep walking when the road offers you no sign of progress. Faith for many men is not about religion, though it can be. It is not even about optimism in the simple sense. It is about survival. Faith is the reason a man can look at his empty bank account and still plan for a future where he is financially free. Faith is the reason a man can feel the sting of rejection and still dream of love that will last. Faith is the reason a man can fail 100 times and still keep building, still keep trying, still keep hoping. It is the one thing that cannot be taken from him unless he surrenders it himself. The truth is, life has a way of testing men. It strips them of comfort, it confronts them with failure, it exposes their weaknesses, and it forces them into battles they did not ask for. But it is in these battles that a man learns the true meaning of faith. Anyone can believe when life is good, when money is flowing, when love surrounds them, when success is visible. True faith is forged in darkness. It is born in the moments when nothing makes sense, when the future looks hopeless, when the present is unbearable. And yet, even then, men hold on to the idea that one day it will all turn around. Consider the man who has been rejected by opportunity after opportunity, who has knocked on doors that never opened, who has put in effort that yielded no results, and who still wakes up every day ready to knock again. That is faith. Consider the man who has been left alone after giving his all to people who walked away, who still believes love is worth waiting for. That is faith. Consider the man who has failed businesses, lost friends and seen his plans collapse, yet still writes down new goals. That is faith. These are the quiet victories that no one sees, but they matter more than any external success, because they are victories over the self, over doubt, over despair. Men often do not talk about this side of their journey. They hide their struggles behind humor, behind silence, behind the mask of being fine. But behind that mask, there is often a man fighting battles no one knows about. And still through it all, he believes. He believes that if he just keeps moving, if he just keeps going, if he just keeps showing up, life will eventually reward him. That kind of faith may look foolish to some, but it is the very thing that has kept generations of men building, protecting, and striving against impossible odds. Faith is what allows men to endure long seasons of waiting, because progress does not always come fast. Success does not always come when you want it. Love does not always arrive when you are ready. But faith allows you to keep going anyway. Faith says, I may not see it today, but I know my effort is not wasted. Faith says, my time will come. Faith says, even in the middle of the storm, I believe in the sun that will eventually rise. Without faith, a man gives up. With faith, a man keeps going. And when a man keeps going, he positions himself for the breakthrough that others gave up waiting for. The beauty of this faith is that it does not require perfection. You can be broke and still have faith. You can be alone and still have faith. You can be tired, broken, and uncertain and still have faith. In fact, the more imperfect your life looks, the more powerful your faith becomes. Because it is easy to believe when everything is perfect. It is almost meaningless to say, you have faith when you already have everything you need. Real faith is tested when everything is missing, when everything is uncertain, when everything seems lost. That is the faith that changes lives. That is the faith that creates men who rise from nothing and build something incredible. History is filled with men who carried this kind of faith. Inventors who failed dozens of times before creating something world-changing. Entrepreneurs who went bankrupt before building empires. Fighters who lost battles before winning wars. Fathers who struggled to provide but never stopped trying. Everyday men who, despite the odds, chose to keep believing. Their faith was not glamorous. Their faith was not always recognized. But their faith was unshakable. And that is why their stories matter. For any man reading this, or any man hearing these words, know this. Your current reality does not define your future. You may be broke today, but that does not mean you will be broke forever. You may be in debt today, but that does not mean you cannot rise above it. You may be alone today, but that does not mean love is not on its way. You may be tired, struggling, and overwhelmed today, but that does not mean tomorrow will not bring new strength. Hold on to your faith, because it is the one thing that cannot be taken from you unless you choose to give it up. And remember this, every great man who has ever achieved anything started in a place where success looked impossible. They started tired, they started broke, they started alone, but they started with faith. Faith that their story was not finished, faith that their struggle had meaning, faith that their persistence would one day pay off. That same faith is within you. That same faith can carry you through sleepless nights, early mornings, empty pockets, and lonely days. That same faith can transform your life if you refuse to let it die. So the next time you find yourself awake at 2 a.m, overwhelmed by everything that feels wrong in your life, remind yourself that you are still here for a reason. Remind yourself that faith is not about ignoring your struggles, but about believing that they are not the end of your story. And when you wake up at 6, tired but still moving, remind yourself that this discipline, this persistence, this belief, is the very thing that will eventually lead you to the life you deserve. Men can stay up until 2 a.m. and wake up at 6. They can be in debt, broke, and alone. And still, they can hold on to faith that one day everything will work out. That faith is not foolish. That faith is power. That faith is survival. And that faith is what will carry you from the man you are today to the man you are destined to become. Like, share, and subscribe to the Post of Pulse.